The double-edged sword, inside Anthropic's Fable 5 and Mythos 5. Imagine engineering a technological leap so profoundly powerful you literally have to censor it the second it's born. Well, Anthropic just dropped their newest AI architecture, and honestly, it's a total paradigm shift. Welcome to our explainer on Fable 5 and Mythos 5. Today, we're unpacking the raw power, the unprecedented safeguards, and what this all actually means for the future of tech, both here in the US and globally.
To really wrap our heads around the scale of what we're dealing with, just look at this quote from Stripe. The massive US payment processor got early access to this tech, and they threw a 50 million-line Ruby codebase at it. Now, doing a migration of that size would normally take an entire team of highly skilled engineers over 2 months of grueling manual labor. Fable 5 did the whole shebang in a single day. Think about that. It brilliantly illustrates why this isn't just some standard software update. We're talking about time compression on a level that fundamentally alters how enterprise businesses operate.
But here's the core tension of this entire release. Anthropic built a digital brain so incredibly capable at things like finding code vulnerabilities and doing complex biology research that they got genuinely terrified of it being weaponized. So what do? They cleaved it right in two. Fable 5 is the model available to the consumer public. It is insanely powerful, but it's basically wearing a heavy straitjacket of strict safeguards. Then you have Mythos 5. This is the exact same underlying brain, but entirely unrestricted. And no, you can't have it. It is only being handed over to the US government and heavily vetted cyber defenders.
Let's actually look at the numbers. This is the agentic coding benchmark, which basically measures how well an AI can act autonomously, like a high-level software engineer. Just a few weeks ago, Opus 4.8 was blowing our minds with a score of 69.2%. Fable 5 and Mythos 5 just completely shattered that, hitting an astonishing 80.3%. So the big takeaway here is that on the hardest, most complex, long-running coding problems out there, this new architecture is performing entirely in a league of its own.
But it's not just sitting there typing out text, it's actually seeing and doing. The vision capabilities on this thing are absolutely staggering. Fable 5 literally played Pokemon Fire Red from start to finish. And get this, it didn't use cheat codes or helper tools. It just looked at raw screenshots of the game and autonomously figured out how to win. On top of that, it can look at a single picture of a web app and autonomously rebuild the entire source code for it from scratch. It even built a solar system simulation and predicted eclipses by deriving physics from first principles. We are looking at a level of autonomy that is just wildly unprecedented.
10 times. That is how much Anthropic's internal experts accelerated aspects of the drug design process using this new model. In some specific tests using protein design and bioinformatics tools, Mythos 5 operated with zero human assistance, and it matched or actually beat skilled human scientists. It chose the binding sites, it ran the design tools, and it even recovered from its own failures. When you think about human longevity and medical breakthroughs, this is absolutely breathtaking.
The quarantine. Why the models are terrifying. So, why did Anthropic feel compelled to place Fable 5 in what is essentially a digital quarantine? Why are the creators themselves so spooked by their own creation that they actively block users from accessing its full potential? Well, this is where our story shifts from a cinematic technological marvel to a very real national security conversation.
The primary fear here centers around a concept called agentic hacking. Now, we're not talking about an AI just guessing a weak password. Agentic hacking means the AI can autonomously run a full-scale, multi-phase cyber attack. It can do the reconnaissance to find a target, discover a zero-day vulnerability in the software, exploit it, and then laterally move through a network, covering its tracks the whole time. Mythos-class models excel at this, which unfortunately makes devastating cyber attacks dramatically easier and cheaper for bad actors to pull off.
And those threat vectors, they don't stop at computer code. Because the model is so brilliant at designing proteins for medicine, it's equally capable of designing dangerous adeno-associated viruses in the wrong hands. We're also looking at the very real potential for massive cyber attack automation. Plus, Anthropic noted that authoritarian states have already been making large-scale distillation attempts. Basically, they're trying to extract and clone the AI's unrestricted capabilities to build their own unregulated models. The global stakes here are incredibly high.
So how do they combat this? Anthropic engineered an unprecedented safety net. When you use Fable 5, you aren't just talking to Fable. There are secondary classifier AI systems actively watching your prompts. Here's how it works. Step 1, you ask something high risk. Step 2, the classifier detects a biological, cyber, or distillation threat. Step 3, it instantly shuts down Fable 5 and automatically downgrades your prompt to the older, safer Opus 4.8 model. They are literally censoring the AI dynamically, in real time, to prevent catastrophic misuse.
Now, I know what you're thinking. If you're just a normal user trying to get legitimate work done, having your AI constantly downgrade you sounds incredibly frustrating, right? Like an overprotective parent constantly hovering over your shoulder. But Anthropic's data actually shows that these strict safeguards only trigger in less than 5% of user sessions. So 95% of the time, you are getting the full, unbridled power of Fable 5. That 5% block rate is just the thin line Anthropic is drawing to keep the internet safe.
Project Glasswing, deploying Mythos 5 to U.S. cyber defenders. But what about the people whose actual day job is to defend against these exact threats? Enter Project Glasswing. This is the highly vetted, heavily restricted program where the fully unleashed Mythos 5 model is actually deployed. In collaboration with the U.S. government, Anthropic is carefully rolling this out to cyber defenders and critical infrastructure providers. It's essentially giving the good guys the ultimate weapon so they can patch the vulnerabilities long before the bad guys inevitably figure out how to exploit them.
The pragmatic reality, Fable 5 access and costs. Okay, let's bring this back down to earth for everyone watching this explainer right now. You can log in and access Fable 5 today. But before you go routing all of your daily, mundane tasks through this digital supercomputer, we need to talk about the pragmatic reality of how resource-heavy this architecture truly is.
Take a look at this pricing breakdown. Fable 5 is exactly double the cost of the already freemium Opus 4.8 model. You're looking at $10 for input and a whopping $50 per million output tokens. Fable 5 is a remarkably token-hungry beast. So for everyday tasks like rewriting a quick email or drafting a standard report, using Fable 5 is massive overkill, and it will burn through your budget so fast. But for deep, cognitive-heavy work or migrating millions of lines of code overnight, the expense easily pays for itself because you're literally replacing days or weeks of human labor.
You also need to know about a major shift in privacy. Anthropic has implemented a mandatory new 30-day data retention policy for all Fable and Mythos class models. And what's wild is that this applies even to enterprise users who previously negotiated zero retention agreements, no exceptions. Now, Anthropic explicitly states they are not using this data to train their models. Instead, they are keeping it for 30 days specifically to study complex jailbreaks and defend against novel attacks. It makes sense as a security measure, but for sure it's a controversial one.
IPOs, financial markets, and government intervention. If we zoom out for a second and look at the macro landscape, the timing of this cinematic leap in AI capability is fascinating. All the major players are making massive financial moves literally right now. Anthropic has confidentially filed a draft for an IPO, OpenAI announced similar intentions, and SpaceX's xAI is also moving toward public offerings. We're seeing these companies race to secure massive capital right at the exact moment their systems are becoming powerful enough to genuinely rattle global financial markets.
And governments are absolutely scrambling to keep up. An executive order recently signed by President Trump directly addresses this rapid escalation. It allows AI companies to voluntarily give the federal government access to frontier AI models up to 30 days before their public release. Importantly, though, it prohibits the government from imposing mandatory reviews, keeping the entire process voluntary. It's a very clear indicator of how federal authorities are desperately trying to stay informed on these advancements without stifling American innovation.
Which brings us to the ultimate endgame that Anthropic themselves are warning about. They recently urged global AI labs to establish a coordinated brake pedal. Why? Because of a concept known as recursive self-improvement. This is the critical threshold where an AI becomes smart enough to autonomously rewrite and upgrade its own code. It makes itself smarter, which allows it to write even better code continuously with absolutely zero human intervention. And with Fable 5's astonishing coding metrics, that sci-fi threshold feels closer than ever. So we are standing right on the edge of a new era. Anthropic has handed us a tool that can quite literally cure diseases and rebuild massive software architectures in hours. But it's a tool so sharp they had to put a protective sheath over it just to let us hold it. So I leave you with this. As these systems rapidly approach the point of recursive self-improvement, are we as a society, as businesses, and as individuals truly ready for what comes next? Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, stay focused, and I'll catch you in the next one.